Alright, this is an old Waltham pocket watch. And a friend gave this to me and said, hey, is there any chance you can have a look at this? So I said, yeah, I'll see what I can do. The face is in great condition. It's, as you can see, it's not too bad. The face is actually in excellent condition. And it looks as though, there we go there. It's, not sure how many carat that is, but it's gold filled. I'm going to get my other glasses on here. It's a gold filled pocket watch, and it is, see, gold filled American watch company, and it doesn't say it's a cashier. It says it's a cashier case. So it's a nice condition case. Needs a little bit of work. There's no real dents in it, which is nice. And I'll just zoom out a bit. And it still has some little bit of etching here on the back. So it's actually a nice watch. It is a P.J. Bartlett, Waltham, Massachusetts, and it's 17 jewels and adjusted. So it's a nice looking piece. It's old. If I looked it up, it would probably say 1890 or something like that. And I looked at the condition of the watch and thought, okay, this is pretty good. Maybe there's no issues here at all. Then I noticed the balance. Move that around a bit. As you can see, there's the pivots on the balance are totally broken. So to make this thing run again, I'm going to have to actually remove the balance cock and the balance. So I'm going to progress to do that. I know I should have finger cocks on right now, so it's a little bit less messy, but I'll worry about that when I clean the watch later. So I'll end up having to make a balance staff for this. So the first thing you do is you got to take the front off to remove the piece. So I just put that back on there to protect it a bit, and then I'm hoping I can just ride this back a bit. This is a screw-on, screw-off back. Oh, that is tight. Now, someone told me a long time ago a little trick to take these off is you have to take a ball, and I take the ball and I wrap it in a cleaning glove, basically. So I got this ball here, which is a little bit sticky, but the cleaning glove is incredibly sticky. Then you just turn it over like that. Hope this works, because I'm going to look like an idiot if it doesn't. But I'm going to back this off a little bit more, and I got the back on this, so it's slightly protected. And you just push on the crystal like that, and you turn it. So if there's any chance of coming apart, it will when you do this. Alright, that was plan A. Now, plan B, look at the watch, and maybe this thing doesn't unscrew, because that is not moving at all. I'm really thinking it should unscrew, because that is on so tight. Let me try that again here. I'm gonna have to go off film and put some real oomph into it. No, that ain't moving. So let me go off a bit and see if I can take this. Alright, phase 2 is I have this big rig here that I can put the movement in like this, and then use the ball here to turn it. So, but the first thing I'm going to do is see if I can oil the threads here and see if that loosens it. Alright, this is one stubborn friggin' lid. I can't get it off. I don't think it's a pop. It's a snap-on. I just don't think it is, because it would have a lip on it. So it's either threaded really poorly, so it's totally jammed in there, or I don't know what is going on here. So the other option here is to just see if I can get at that balance staff without removing it and get the watch running as it is. So the guy who owns this watch doesn't really care about it too much, but he probably wants it working, which would be nice, but I haven't talked to him in a while, and don't think it's just something that was in a drawer, I think. So, but it's a nice old watch, so it's probably worth a little bit of effort. Now these watches here, you can take the plate off right here. I try not to scratch it, so get from underneath, and then get my balance, my holder here, so I can just remove this like this, and then what I'll do is I'll have a look at the jewels inside. So that's the easy way of doing it, but I really wanted to get the top off this thing. So, and as well, I got to put this back on because when I was twisting it, it just came off, but it's in fine condition. The little knobs are still here, so it's all good. So I'm going to have a look at the balance itself, and then I'm going to have a look at the jewel holes to make sure that there's no cracked jewels in there and whatever. And good thing to do too is give it a bit of a wind. I think it's probably fully wound right now. It feels that way. And just see if the pallet fork snaps back and forth inside. And it seems to be, yeah, it seems to be moving. It's not snapping back, but it's moving, which is good. So I imagine this thing needs oil because it hasn't been used in such a long time. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's snapping back and forth now. Snapping, maybe not snapping, but it's good enough. So what I'll do is disassemble this, which is kind of tricky usually. I usually put this in my hand like that, and then I flip it over. And that way I'm not ruining it in any way. And then I have to have a closer look at this with my eyepiece on in order to determine what I need to do here to get the balance off. So just zoom in here a bit so you can see what's going on. There we go. Let me see. Left is right, right is left, up is down, down is up. There we go. I think that's right. Not sure about the lighting here. I think my lighting is kind of crappy. So if I did this, then it goes darker, and I do this, and it goes lighter. Yeah, whatever. Anyway. So, if I look in really close, I can see the screw holding the stud is right here, so I can undo that really carefully. And it's kind of tricky even when you're looking really close. And you just have to turn it a few turns, and then you can push the stud out like so. And there we go. That's the balance cock here. Just set that aside. Now I've got the balance here. What the heck was that just rolled in? It's a piece of pith wood. Hope it doesn't piss me off. There we go. And I put that on a block. Put the block out here and find the appropriate hole to put this on. There we go. And just to protect the watch a bit, I'll put it here. And the first thing I do is I got my up and down and sideways all screwed up. I think I'll zoom in a bit here. And we pause for a second and then zoom in. That's a better idea. Now I want to take the spring off. So the first thing I have to do is mark where the stud is. And I'm doing that so when I put the spring back on, I don't have to guess. So put a big black mark there. And that should be good enough. I'll try to align that later on when I put it all back together. And then I get a couple of screwdrivers. And what you want to do is go underneath the hairspring. I've seen people use hand levers and stuff. But I find just using a screwdriver usually is good enough. If I can very carefully get it under like that, and then you roll it back and forth. moving at all? What you don't want to do is the screwdriver slips and then ruins your, there we go. And then you just move it back and forth in opposite directions like that. If the screwdriver slips, it could ruin where the hairspring is attached to the hairspring collet. So I don't want that to happen. And then I'll just set this aside. Just put the watch movements back over like this, so I can just put that inside there. And there I've got my my balance, as you can see. And what I need to know is this friction fit or rivet? So before I take the table off, or the roller table off. So it kind of looks like it's just friction fit. I can't seem to see a riveting on top, so I might just be able to pop that thing off. So what I'll do is I'll get my tool out to remove the roller table, and you got to really keep an eye on where the jewel is. And the jewel should be 360 degrees to the arms. So the jewel seems to be yeah, it's on the opposite side of where I marked the hairspring. So I could mark the jewel on this side too, just to make sure. I just want to mark it just so I can remember where the jewel is. Like that. And when you press the balance back on, if you looked at the balance itself and the arms, like here, it forms like a cup, right? So the balance arms are on the lower side. The upper side is usually the hairspring side on this side here. So I've got a couple tools I can use to take off that roller table. It's a single roller, not a double roller, so it doesn't have a safety roller. So the pallet fork, there's no guard pin for the pallet fork on this thing here, so the guard pin would ride on the top of that where the safety roller is. So there's no guard pin, so it's just basic old stuff. So let me get my tool out. Alright, so this is a cool tool I picked up online. I have another tool for getting rollers off, but this is kind of cool. It's pretty old, and I think it was for a factory. So in this tool here, you just slip the table in like that, all the way till it gets to the end, as far as it can go. And that's as far as it can go. It's kind of squeezing the balance. Then it's got a couple of these, right? And I'm going to zoom out a bit here. You can see what this thing looks like. So, and then you carefully, you got to learn how to hold them, or when to hold them. You learn when to fold them, learn when to run, you learn when to run. You got to count your whatever. So what you do here is you put this right on the end here, like so. That, and then I rotate it a bit, and there's enough pokey stuff on the end, and then you ponk like that on it. So now I don't really care about the pivots on this because it's an old one. So if I get my hands out of the way here, you can actually see what's going on, right? So I'm doing this, right, and then I just have to hit this. I'm doing this without looking, so I'm just unsuccessfully doing it without looking. There we go. So that popped it down, and so now I have, there it is there, and there's the balance inside there. Now I can't use this tool to remove the balance shaft, but there we go. There's the see, how do I do this? Right like that. It's gonna have a hard time zooming, I know it. Anyway, that's the roller table, and the jewel is in there as well. The roller table jewel. Zoom. No zoom. No zoom for you, Argentina. Anyway, So that's it there, and if I were to put that down, you'd see that a bit. So there we go there, roller table. So this is a kind of cool tool. So now what I want to do is punch out the stake. So I'm going to pause for a second to show you how that's done. Now I think I showed you guys from another video how this was done before. So I bought these, which are used for compressing the balance staff in the staking set with the arms completely compressed in the holes, and that way you can protect the arms of the balance without distorting them when you press down. So what you need to do first is find the right hole. Let me see if I can do that really quickly. And you just start from a small one and work your way over, and I think I found it right away, so I think that's it. I'll go one more over. No, that one there is completely in. This one here is sort of riding up a little bit, and which means the balance staff won't come through the hole. So this one here is the perfect hole. So what I typically do when I do this is I will throw a stake down the center, and then I keep saying steak, I'm going to get hungry. I'm going to get really hungry. I'm trying to reduce the shadows here. So I'm not sure if I can do this, but so I throw a stake down the center, and then I push the stake down like so until it completely lines up with the tip of what I'm. That way I know where my hole is, like that. Then I tighten it up just a bit, pull the stake out, pull the balance out carefully, push the stake back, loosen the staking set, make sure it's absolutely centered, put some pressure on the top, tighten it, take out the centering stake. I still have to remember where that hole was, so it's right there. So, and then I'll just throw that in, and that is absolutely perfect. So that's in the right place. Put the centering stake back in the staking set. Then I have to pick the right tip for this, and this has two tips, so I just have to make sure it's not the tip of the tip off the old block. So I'm not sure where the shadow is coming from. It's like just rotate things a little bit here, see if I can remove the shadow. Okay, that's not too bad there. Still have the shadow on there though. The shadow of your smile. That's an old song. So I think it's going to be the smaller one right here. So what I'll do, I'm not too concerned either way, but I'll throw this one down and have a look. No, actually the bigger one is perfect now. I was really brave. I just knocked this, bam, straight down, and then it would fall out. But there is that problem that I could ruin it. So what I want to do is put this over the top of it and then compress it. So I will pick the bigger one. Since this is an old pocket watch, I have to assume that it's going to require the bigger one, and slide that in place like that, and then you unscrew it like so, right? I did this video once before on how to do that. Then there's little windows in the side here you look in, and then you look inside the windows just to make sure that it's hitting the top of it. Sometimes you got to move this around before the stake actually goes inside this tool. There we go. And then I should see it appear on the bottom. And we have a look. Put it sideways like that. Look inside, and there's, I can see the I need to loosen that up a bit, I think, because it's just a bit too tight. It's not allowing me to put the stake all the way through. It's blocking it right there. I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe I got to use the other arm for this. Let try that out here. Hang on. Watchmaking is all about trial and error, so, and a lot of reading. See this one's going through. Yeah, this one went right through. And I put a little pressure on here like this, and then turn it just to make sure it's hitting the top. And it looks like it's hitting the top from where I'm seeing. So then all I do is just go counterclockwise, unscrew it like this, like that. And then once you have it like this, you tighten it like so, and that way the balance arm is completely tightened here against that. Seems to be a bit too tight, actually. I wonder if that's possible. I think it is possible. There, that's pretty good there. Now I should be able to pop that out by hitting the top, right? With any luck. So let me pound on it a bit and see what happens. Look and make sure everything is fine here, and that the balance is resting nicely in there, and the stake is on the top of the pivot, sort of over the pivot, and then I'll just wrap on it and see what happens. And crap, it went out right away. So, and then I just loosen that up and see what the result is. And there you go. There ain't, that's plural for aren't, there ain't any more balance staff in there. So it's perfectly out, and it looks like the arms are in perfect condition here. There's no distortion. Let me look at the flat here, and it's perfect. So there's absolutely no distortion on that at all. So that balances out. So let me set this aside, and I'll have a look at the actual balance staff in a sec. There's the balance that was knocked out, and I can see from there that the pivots are not in great condition. Both pivots are broken completely. And let me look at this thing again. It actually looked like there might have been a rivet on there that I pounded out, because it looks like there's a line of metal that would have been the rivet, and it looks more like a ring right now. So I think that's out of there now. So I don't know if this thing will zoom this close, but there we go. So that's the balance right there. Hopefully that's in. Yeah, there we go. It's hard to, left, right, up and down is tricky here. So I got to cut a new one of these balances. So the first thing I do when I cut a balance is I want to measure the outside diameter of this, right? So I can get the right diameter of the metal I need to use. Now I did this in another video, a lathe video, but let me just do it again so I can show you what I do here. And I'll just see if this will zoom in a second. But anyway, probably if I put my tweezers there, it'll zoom. Never sure what the best method of doing this is, but so there's my my metal, or my balance staff. Then I'll get a piece of Rodico, right? The other thing is working with lenses on and videotaping all at the same time. I don't know how some people do this, but it's almost impossible. I just stuff this balance staff into the Rodico like so. It's an old dirty piece of Rodico, but it doesn't really matter. So all I want to do is take my gauge. There's my gauge. I call this a Dormeen's gauge, but I'm sure it's the wrong pronunciation if I actually were to look at it, but I'm an engineer, so I don't need to pronounce words right. So that's the gauge there, and as you can see, it moves along like this, and I use the upper scale on this gauge here, and this upper scale is actually in millimeters. So, and then the lower part of it just simply opens up like that to grab this. So it's a 1 to whatever ratio that is, probably a 1 to 100 ratio. So then let me just zoom out a bit here, and you can see what I'm up to here. See what evil I'm up to. There we go. There's the gauge here, and you've got to have one of these if you're going to use a lathe. So what I'll do here is I want to measure the diameter of the thickest part so I can pick my metal for this to cut, my blue steel. So I do this, have a look at the gauge, and the gauge says 1.7.5, so 1.8, so it's about 1.8 across. So what I want to do, 1.8, is find a piece of metal that I'm going to cut that's about 1.8, which is pretty good. I could probably do with 1.7, but 1.8 is probably good enough. And just measure it again. Measure it like 3 or 4 times just to make sure you get the right. Yep, so it's 1.8. So, and that's measured across its width. I don't know whether I can do this. See if it'll zoom in on this somehow. Probably, there we go. So I do that, then I put the gauge in here and just measure against its width. I can barely do this on camera, hopefully you can see that. Just like that. There we go. There we go. So that's measured against its width, and then when I look at the end of the gauge here, it'll say 1.8. So that's how it works. And let me just do the next step in finding the collet that I need for the lathe. So I found a piece of blued steel, which is the kind of steel you want to use for this. And you measure that blued steel like so. I always rest the steel on my finger like that. Put the Dormion's gauge down like this, and you pretty well get the width. And you don't grab it like this because it's kind of stupid. You grab it like this, like that, and then you've got that grabbed like this. And then I slide it over to the other side, and you can see that that is about 1.7.5, 1.8. So that's good enough, as they say. And that's the right piece of material. And now I gotta go select the appropriate collet I need. And so I'll bring out my box of collets here just for the hell of it. And I got a full box of collets. Let me have a look. Move this stuff out of the way a bit, because I know I'm gonna squish something and I'll be really upset if it happens, right? So just pick this up. Try not to put anything where your hairspring could get damaged, because that'll also piss you off considerably. So there we go. That's that. And I'll move this. Make sure there's nothing down there. I'll move the collets up, and I'll put the camera in a box. And this is the box for my hairspring vibrator. You gotta have one of those if you're gonna do detailed hairspring work. So there are the collets. Let me just move this camera down a bit, like so. See, this doesn't fall inside the collet box. And then what I do is I will take I know that from my gauge here that the biggest width is 1.8, but that ain't gonna help me. I said ain't again. That is not going to help me when it comes time for finding a collet, because what I'm going to end up cutting is I'm going to end up cutting the hairspring side of this balance staff first, and then I'm actually going to do most of the balance staff with one piece. So what I want to do is measure the lip or where the balance staff actually sits. So if I measure that like that. Actually, that's not going to help me at all. What am I talking about? That's for the first cut. That'll help me for the first cut. So if I measure it like for the first cut like that, I'm going to have a look and flip the gauge around because I'm a total idiot. And I would do all that work, and I have a look, and I can't see anything. So the first cut is going to be at 1.7. So let's see if I can show you that. It's really hard to see. So, and even if I try to zoom in. That is at, see if I can rotate that. You can barely see the 10 there. See the 10? So that's 10 and a 2, so that's 1.7 millimeters. So that's the first cut. Now the collet itself, let me get rid of this radical for a second. I want to fit the collet in the roller table side, like that, right? And so that would be, when I do my second cut, I want the second cut on the roller table side to be that width, which is like 0.6 down. So normally I just put these measurements on a piece of paper. I write them all down so I know what to cut. But my piece of metal my original piece of metal then that I have here has to have the right collet size, right? So, because that's going to stick into the lathe. So that is it's almost exactly 1.8. So I will, I think I cut this one off from before, but I will find a 1.8. You got to file the end of that too, so it's nice and smooth, and right now it's no good. So 1.8 is this 1.3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 1.8. So this should feed right in. Look at that. Perfect fit. So there's the collet. And then when you actually start to make your balance staff, you measure your balance staff against the width and make sure you have enough to cut. I grab that balance staff again here for a second with a piece of Rodico, like so. And I got too much stuff in my hands. But what I would do is measure this like so. And let me just bring this up to the camera here, see if that zooms in a bit. And I make sure I have enough for the staff on the end, the pivot on the end, plus enough so that when I cut it off here, using my graver, I'm not cutting it too close to the collet, because you don't want to hit the collet with your graver. That's nasty stuff. So that ends up being about the right distance that you want right there. If you put too much like that, this thing ends up warbling a bit, so it ends up going wah, 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 like that, and you don't want that. So you want it to be as close as possible without warbling. So you do that, and then now normally what I would do is I would take this piece and I would take it right there, and even if I didn't mark it, I'd pull it out a bit like that and maybe cut it right here. Cut it at just under an inch, and that way when I stick it into the collet, I'm leaving this much remaining to make my balance staff. So that's how I would do that. So I'd measure this out perfectly, and then I'd be able to fit it into the lathe. And you know what? I think I'll show you that too. So I've got the lathe set up here on a nice white bed here, and it's I just use a dollar store dish tray thing in the bottom so that I can get some focus here. So that's the lathe there, and I got a tip over tool rest here. So I'm going to actually put this in and spin it, and have to take the tailstock off like so, and just work that off a bit. This is a well put on tailstock. There we go. That was a little bit of fun there. And there you go. And I put this in like so, and there we go. And that fits in nicely. Now these collets don't snug right up against this, so it's not, probably this lathe was made for a different set of collets, but they're not too bad. So I can put this in around the right distance that I think I need, and then tighten that up a bit, and then I'll measure. I just take my original part here and see if I can zoom in some more here, and there's my part there, and I'll just measure to see how far, leave enough room on the end for the pivots and enough room on the other side to cut the end off, right? So let me just push this in just a bit more, because I think I can deal with it just a bit more. So that right there gives me enough room for the pivot on one end and to cut the staff off on the other. So that's perfect there. And then I'll spin it and see if it's actually round enough, if it's spinning nicely. And what I typically do is I get a toothpick here, if I can find a toothpick of an appropriate size, because I can run the toothpick along the bottom here, and if it's not centered, doing that sometimes helps center it. But I'm not sure, because I've got the whole length here. I may have to cut it off to the appropriate size if it's not spinning true. So what I'll do here is I'll just spin it and have it eyeball it. Not too bad. Let me try it again here. That might be good enough, I think. It's nice and smooth when it gets closer to the end. The end's a little bit warped, but I find that when you turn it, when you start turning it, it kind of takes the warp out of it a bit. So that's that part there. Now I'll show you the first move I make here. So I'm all set up now. I put some masking tape down here and here so I don't get the glare off the lathe. And then I'm able to get in close. And so what I do here, the first thing I do is make sure my tool rest is the right distance here. And it's a little bit far away, but it's not too bad, right? And I will put a line on this piece of metal exactly where I want to make my first cut. And the first thing I'm going to cut is I'm going to cut all the material at the diameter of the balance staff hole in the middle, so whatever that's called. So where the balance staff hole is, I've got to make my very first cut here, and I've got to allow enough distance on the end here to make up for the pivot, to actually allow the pivot to form. So and I should have filed the end here down, but I just want to show you how this is done. So I'll just eyeball this, and it's around there. And there, I made my first line, and I should be able to remove all the material from that line outward. So what I'll do, I'll just shave some off right now to show you. So what I will do, not sure if it's easier not to see that because it's not that easy to see. So I'll make sure that line's a bit better here. Taking off some material, and then I'll end up shaving this down. Can't see this very well, but I don't think this is focusing correctly, so I should put the autofocus on. Okay, and I'm going to shave a little bit of material off here at that point. And what I want to do is shave that down to that first step. I think I actually need to adjust the tool rest, so I may just bring that tool rest just down a bit. See, the material's coming off nicely, and I have a low boy click pedal there that I use to adjust the speed. So I want to get my Dormeen's gauge out again here and measure. I want to measure my first cut, which is, let me see if I can, I'll just put this over here because I know it's focused here, and just do this here. I'm just trying to do this. I'm hoping it's the right side. So my first cut is 0.17. So, and that's for the balance staff to fit on there. Hopefully I'm not talking too loud right now. So first cut. First cut is 1.7. So 1.7 is the first cut. And this right now is riding at about, this is so awkward to do this with a camera here. This is 1.8. Okay, there's something wrong here because I think 1.7 is a bit thick. Let me check that again here without the camera. No, it's actually 1.2. So 1.2 is what I'm looking at, and here I'm already looking at 1.8, so I got a ways to go. 1.8, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll take this material off. Let me adjust this tip over tool rest just a bit. Bring it down a tad, and then tighten it up. I think right there would be good. Yeah, this thing requires a lot of tightening. And then I'll cut it down. I'm hoping to cut it down enough to show you how I fit the balance staff on. So I'll just keep removing material from it like this until I get down to the right width. And that would be the width of the hole on the balance staff. I typically just rock my graver back and forth. And what you want to make sure is that it's tapered from the end here to here. So your measurement here, you should hit the 1.2 here first, and then put your balance staff on, and then you ride it up the taper, and then see where you are after that. So I got to take some more material off here. And it's not too bad. I think I'll cut away and then just let you know how I'm doing. So that's at 1.4, so that's getting pretty close. So I'll just keep cutting so I can show you how I make that first cut. And I've picked I'll go to a different set of gravers after this. I gotta make sure it's tapered, so you can actually, when you're cutting, you can actually use my tweezers here. You actually focus above here, and you watch the angle up here as you're cutting sort of in the center here. That way you can keep an eye on where that taper is, and make sure you got like a 3-degree taper there, so that you don't cut the staff, cut it too fat, too fast. So let me grab the balance staff and show you here. And that's not fitting yet. I doubt it anyway. Just clean it off a bit. And then put that on, and it's pretty close. It's getting pretty close. So let me take a little bit more off here. bet you that fits now. Let me check that out here. Make sure I put it on the right way. And there we go. So it's starting to fit on, and you just have to note with your eyeball on how far over it is. So I'll take a bit more material off the middle and not the end part, because the end part's looking pretty good. I'll check that out again. And that's what you do. You just take the material off and you fit it on, you take it off and fit it on. So it's going on a little further now, but I still have plenty of material to take off. So I'll take a bit more off. And then I'm going to switch to a finer graver. I'm going to switch my eye loop as well, because these ones here, this one here is just a flip over eye loop, and I'm going to go to these eye loops here, which are, look at that, pretty cool, which give me real good close up here on this thing, so I can really focus. As long as my head doesn't hit it, I'm good. Yeah, that's much better. I normally get in really close, but I could screw all this up because I'm talking while I'm doing it. See how it's riding in a little more even? So there, I got that going in just a bit more. So it's about a third up. Try to hold my breath and not cough, but I'm sure that's a spike in the video right now. There we go. So that's even further up. And now what I'll do is I'll switch gravers. Alright, this graver is a point. It's actually 4 millimeters, and it's flat on the end right there. These are my guitar fingernails. I apologize again. It's only on 3 fingers, so. And I probably have to lower the tool rest for this, because these gravers take a little more real estate to use. So I'll just lower the tool rest a bit, and that might be good enough there, and just see if that works. Yeah, that should do. I don't think it's as flat as it should be, but let's try it again anyway. Well, it's taking off material nicely. The thing is, I'm wondering if it can cut down. That's pretty good right there. Now just let me fit the balance on again for a second. Make sure I haven't gone too far. The problem with all this is that I got plenty of room left here. It's actually focusing on this is tough. So especially when you're recording. That's what the hardest part is, I think. fit that back on again and see what that looks like. That might go all the way in. No, it's still, oh, it's friggin' close. As you can see, it's getting pretty close. And I should have done an undercut here, but it's very difficult to do an undercut when I'm trying not to hit the camera and stuff, because I got the camera up super close right now. I could see if I can move the camera at an angle and then do the undercut. Not sure. Let me just bring it a little tiny bit more here. Now I'm going to take it just back from here about the width of the hole in the balance, just so I get it to fit right up to where I want it to fit. I hold that just at a little tiny bit of an angle, the graver, so I can take the material off nice and slowly. That should go, that should feed right up to the to where that is. It's going to be a long video to put on YouTube. There we go, see that? So that balance staff is almost up to, if you can see that, it's so close to being on the end, and I've left a little bit of material about the width of this thing on the end, so when I stake it, it'll stake up to that. So it's pretty friggin' close right now. So let me just take a tad more material off the main part, just a bit more. That should be enough. That, my friends, is probably really good. Yeah, so when I think that'll work. When I pound on this with my stake, I'm going to leave just a little bit for a rivet. So the tricky part here is measuring the width of this. So if I actually look at the width of my graver, and I look at the width of the arms here, I should probably leave about the width of the graver, because the graver on the end is about the width, a little bit bigger than the width of the arm. So that should allow me to basically, that there is what I should be leaving, right? And that should leave me a little more, enough material for riveting. So just take a bit more off of here at an angle. Like that. And then that'll compress nicely. And then I got to go over just about the width of the graver. And then take off some material here. And that's for my next cut. Now that cut, the next cut is for the hairspring. So I don't want to, so you can see what that looks like. I can shave all this material away, and now I want to make sure that I also have a 3-degree taper, so when I put the hairspring on, I don't lose that. I'm just taking material down here because I know my hairspring is not this fat, so There, I've got a pretty good taper going there. So now I take the balance staff up again, and I've got to measure the where the hairspring sits, and I'm using my Dormeen's gauge again. And again, if it's the name of that gauge is wrong, too friggin' bad. So I take a look at that. Hopefully I haven't cut it too much. If I have, then that's it for the video, right? So I should do this. You just do this and grab it. I can't do this with the camera here, but there we go. So I've grabbed it like this, and then I will look over at the other end and see how thick that is. So that is, let's see if I can do this without screwing it up. 0.9. 0.9 is how thick it is. Oh my god, I grabbed it. And there we go. It's focused for a second. Anyway, that's 0.9. Let me have a look at this again and make sure I don't screw this up. So that is just under 0.9. So that's not too bad. So now I have to cut the next cut just under 0.9. Right, gotta make sure you don't lose my stick your balance staff right into the Rodico every time. And let me measure this here and see if I've screwed up yet. And this is, geez, that's close. That's just over 0.9 right on the end. So I did cut a lot away. That's actually 0.8. And then up here, hopefully the gods of watchmaking are good to me here. And this is just over 0.9. So then you got to grab the hairspring. Let me just take a little bit more material off the tip of that so I can get the hairspring on and see where I'm at. So just hang on a second. Hopefully this focuses on the friggin'. I want this to focus on me shaving it like that. I'm going to be really brave and put my finger in there while I'm doing this. My long fingernails. Again, I apologize, but if you want to play classical guitar, you gotta have long friggin' fingernails. And I'm shaving it up, and I'm leaving a couple degrees there. Alright, now I'll get the hairspring out, and I will see if that fits. I'm hoping this video is good that you can actually see what's going on here, because it would be a shame if you couldn't. So, grab the hairspring here, and I just talk just to distract you while I'm trying to do this. And what you do is you take the hairspring and you put it on the end here and see if it fits. And it looks like it's going on. There we go. So that is the hairspring on the end. And again, this camera needs to learn how to focus better. So and that is fitting pretty good right now. So I got to make sure I don't shave off too much here, because I'll get in big trouble if I do. And I'll have nothing. I don't want to screw the hairspring up either here by pushing it on too deep. So there it is there. There's the hairspring sitting on there. So, and there you go there. So it's sitting on the balance staff, but I still got about another width of the hairspring collet to go. So let me just throw this into the into my parts bin here and have a look at what I'm looking at here. We'll look at what I'm looking at. So I know it fit on pretty close to hair, so it basically, I shaved it up to here and it fit in pretty good. So again, I need to shave a bit more off. So let me see, is this thing will it focus on the moving object? Hard to say. Stupid camera. I don't have an autofocus in the specific software I use. So let me just take a bit more off here. Alright, that would be probably enough right there. So let me grab the hairspring again. And I will put this on. Usually I do this again, there's a camera in the way, so you see how that works. There it is there. And if I push on this, is it going to go to the back? Hopefully not. No, that's pretty good right there. Well, I can't shave any more material off because then my hairspring won't stay on the balance staff. So that's pretty good. Now I'm going to look. What I do then is I look at the balance staff again. Geez, I wish I could get this thing just focusing nicely. Or just stop complaining about how it focuses. I'll back it off just a bit here. There. It's focusing on the bottom part of this down here somewhere. So anyway, so there we go. Well, this seems to focus and then it moves away, so let me stop this for a second. So this is what I have now, and I've got to cut away at the pivot side of this now. So the next thing you do is actually you've got to do some measuring again. So I got to actually put the balance staff right next to this particular staff and see what I got, and then mark. And this is something I normally do from the other side, so this could be tricky, but I have to mark where that pivot end is going to be. So there's what I got now, and I think I got a little more material I may have to take away from the where the balance sits. Cut that down, just down a bit, and then the pivot is going to start right around there. So, but I think I just have to take, unless I rivet it. If I rivet it, then I've got to undercut it. So if I just take that down just a tad. I put my double glasses on for this one, I think. This is like really tight. Do it. Set the camera there. I'm going to screw up big time. Now, what I need to do is actually undercut that, and I don't know whether I can undercut it with this without moving my tool post around. Let me see whether I can do this. going to have to sharpen that a bit. Yeah, I'm trying to undercut this. The focus on this thing is so bad. I don't know whether I'll publish this video or not. Alright, I think that did it. So now I have the balance staff and the hairspring both fitting, which is really nice. Alright, so now I have to figure this out. I've got to cut the pivot end. So as you can see with a piece of Rodico, you can put the original balance next to the staff or the balance you're cutting, and that enables, or should enable, you to actually mark this where that cut needs to be. So I'm going to make the cut right here. I'm going to remove material for the balance, so I'll just get this out of the way for now, because I can cut it and then shave it back if it's too long. So let me see if I can work the angles on this a bit. I just wish this didn't focus down below. We just throw a pocket knife in there. see what I can throw in there that doesn't reflect or something. I don't know. There. Pocket knife? No, that doesn't work. I don't know. Let's just keep going, as they say, right? Just hide everything except what needs to be focused on. There it is. Look at that. And then if I do this and my fingers come off because of this, I'll blame everything else. So I gotta cut this. My graver's way too big for this, so I gotta switch gravers here. Now I'm trying to cut the pivot end here, so Now when I get close to the end here, I usually get really close and see where I am with respect to the pivot part. And I switch to a rounded tip graver. So I'll take this and then I'll just bring this up really close and have a look at it and see where to eyeball it. So this can definitely go back a bit more. Yeah, should take a little bit more off it because you don't want it to be too long. I think right about there I can like that. Pivot would start right around here somewhere. Just have a look at that again. See if that makes any sense. I see, got that right there. And that's not too bad. I just have to move my taper back a bit for the pivot. It's a little bit too long. So I've got it starting. I've got it starting here when it should start. And I'm going to sharpen this a bit more. There, I sharpened it up a bit. Let's see if that works any. That's a lot nicer. There, as you can see, that's looking pretty much like it's looking pretty close to being done. So what I do now, I gotta measure it again, but what I do now is I get a stone out. I'll show you how I do that. Just hang on a second till I measure this again. See where that pivot starts. That's the most important part. Now I can take this upside down as well and have a look at it. So that's pretty friggin' close. Now, what I do, I switch to a different graver. Now this graver is a 2 round, so 2 millimeters but round, so I can be pretty fine with this one too. Cut this back just a bit here. and round it off. There you go. That's pretty good there. So now I take a stone out. Let me show you how that's done. And my stone is rounded. Usually I put oil on it, but I find if I don't put oil on it, it actually cuts faster. I'm not sure if that ruins my stone or not. So the stone has a rounded edge to it. So this is the stone here, like this. And it has a rounded edge to it, so I'm going to zoom out a bit here so you can see what I'm doing. So just zoom right out here, and I will take this stone. I think this is the rounded edge here, or is this the rounded edge? This is the rounded edge too. I have two rounded edges. So I will take this, and with one hand I'll start peeling away material. Like so. And you can see how that pivot is getting smaller and smaller. And normally I measure the hole, which I should have been doing already, so I'll just go down to this size here just to show you how that works. You can see all the material that's coming off there. That's metal, and that's not the stone. You got to be very light when you do this, because if you lean into it too much, you break the end off the pivot. That's pretty good there. So now I have to do some measuring. Alright, with my pivot gauge, I take the balance cock like this, and there's one of my pivot gauges, and that's 0.11. So that's a pivot gauge. So, and you just stick that in there like so, and I already did a few of these. That is the correct fit. So that is 0.11, which means when I use my Burrell gauge here, I can go down to 0.11. So that means the end of the pivot needs to be 0.11, which means when I measure it, you just put this stuff away for a second. When I measure this, I have to basically take the gauge up like this and then go against the pivot like this and go to 0.11 and see what the fit is. And there's a long way to go. And I'll also, once again, take the actual balance staff that I'm replacing, put that up against the balance here again to make sure that it's all kosher. I know I can cut it back just a bit, but okay. And I can also do this and see where that pivot end is. That's not too bad, actually. Yeah, that should be the right size. So now it's a matter of just adjusting this continuously working it until I get the right. Let me just zoom in a bit here. I get the stone out like that, and I'm really hoping for some hoping that this thing adjusts. Yeah, I wish I could actually zoom in on this. What you do is lay down the dark background maybe like this, and then show you how that works. Just throw this down here completely so I don't get that reflection, and then maybe it will adjust to the pivot side instead of the friggin' background. That doesn't work either. For some reason it doesn't want to do it. I don't know why, but having a hell of a time trying to get this to focus. So maybe just put my hand back here again, and maybe it'll, there you go. Focuses a bit on the pivot on the end there. So you can see that it's getting pretty small. See if I can zoom in a bit here. Yeah, it's getting, the end part's getting pretty small. And the way I'm basically doing this is I'm taking the stone here and I'm rubbing underneath just barely. And I'm only using one hand so you can get, so you can't fight your hands, fight one hand against the other, which is not recommended. It's pretty good there. I measure that, and then if it's the right diameter or width or whatever the hell it is, the right diameter, I should be in good working shape here. Let me try 1, 2 here and see whether that goes in. It's still close. It's around 1. It's around 1.5 right now. So it needs to go down a bit more. So I'm going to take it down, and that should do. I should move the light away, and maybe that'll work. Look at that, no light. So I'm going to just zoom out a bit. There we go. And then I got to take that down just a bit more. I'm going to pause for a second as I do that. Alright, it's getting pretty close to being finished here, so I'm going to have one measurement here. Is that still at point? I'm at 0.13 right now. Yeah. So I still have to remove even a little tiny bit more, which is amazing considering how much I've taken off already. To make sure I don't have the wrong side of this thing. Yeah, this side, this should work well here. And again, the camera's kind of in the way here, so I'm praying for the best. should do. There. Once I get it down to 0.11 or whatever I have there, then I get out my burnishing tool and you put a little bit of oil on it, just a tad of oil on it, and you use the round side of this thing. And let me show you how that's done. So I just put a bit of oil on this, and then you want to smooth it out. So once again, I recommend using one hand, because two hands and you're going to end up fighting with yourself and breaking it off. And then you want to take the burnisher and put it at an angle like that, so that the tip of the pivot is rounded. And then just do this, and that'll round the tip of the pivot. That should do right there. So that's that. So now the trick is you now want to make the cut. So let me look at this and see how close I am to success here. So that's the past pivot, that's the new one, and they're pretty friggin' close. So now what I want to do is make a mark where I'm going to cut the back part. So let me just get this thing at the right angle. I just need to lower this just a bit here. There we go. So here I'd normally just I'll just stick this on the back because it's easy to do, and just like that. And now I want to make the cut for the back part of this balance staff. Now you gotta be very careful with that pivot you just cut, because you can snap that off so easily, it's sickening. So I now have to eyeball where the back part of that cut would be, and I'm thinking right around here. Yeah, so right on the outside of that line there I made. So which would mean I'm cutting it from here over. So what I'm going to do is make a deep cut, so I know where it is. And I can take off a bunch of material. I should probably use a different graver for this, because this little baby here is great for details, but I probably shouldn't be using it to remove all the material. Although it's working pretty good, so I hate to stop right now. Now this has got to go down pretty low, so I should probably make this less than half an hour each one, because I'm taping this whole friggin' thing. So it's pretty close there, but I got to take some more off, I think. Yeah, I got to take another lip off this thing here, which I can do quite easily. I also want to measure how far back this has to go before it gets to the pivot end. So I still need to take some more off here. So I'll take it down to around, right around here. That way I have enough for the pivot and I have enough to cut it off after. I need to flip gravers because I'm working way too hard here. I think this one here will cut material a lot faster. There we go. Now I gotta taper it again like I did last time. So I gotta smoothen it out. And I need to taper it. And this graver is a bit too far away from it, the kickover tool rest, but I'm taking my chances right now. I definitely don't want to get it grounded underneath the part. They'll cut it. I should do some measuring here because I need to measure with my Dormeans again the width of that, or the diameter of the smallest part. So this here, you need to measure the diameter of this end part here, so you don't cut it too small. And it's 0.6. That is what this says, 0.6. So I'm also going to have a look at how well where my sizing is here. So I got enough material on the end there to make my pivot. Yeah, it's no problem. And that's perfect right there. Just have to flatten it out a bit. So 0.6. So I got, as you can see, I got quite a ways to go here before it gets down to 0.6. So I'll just grave it down. I'll come back. Okay, now that I've cut it back a bit, I've got it's at 0.8 right now. So if I take my gauge here with all my glasses and all the rest of the stuff I'm whining about, I pinch it on here like so. When I look up, I'm at about 0.8. So I can take a little bit more off very carefully, and then I got to cut it away and flip it around. So, but before I do that, what I should do, I need to actually bevel this part of the balance staff as well. So I need to have a bit of an angle here as well. So I can do that right now. Now if you look at the original part and this part here, you'll see that they're pretty friggin' close. Pretty friggin' close. Even the angle here is pretty good. Like that. There we go. There's the two parts there. So I have to smoothen out this a bit too. Right here. I don't mind it being a bit rough because it's where the hairspring fits, so if it's too smooth then I won't get a good grip on the hairspring. So, but I can take a little tiny bit more off this before I shave it down. Like I said, it's at 0.8 right now, so get this end down to 0.6, then I know I'm close. Now watch, I don't have too much chatter on this graver here. I'm going to speed it up to smooth it out a bit. Alright, well, I'm back by popular demand, I guess. I decided to find a collet for the to finish the other side. So what I have to do now, turn this around carefully. So what I have to do now is just fit this trick is to hold it lightly, that way whatever happens there we go. I'm not sure if that's going to be level or not, but I decided to hug it where the hairspring is. See how, oh, that's nice. That ain't moving at all. That's really good. So now, just like I did before, I end up with this end here. Of course, it's pretty close, so it's hard to measure. So what you do is you flip it around the other way, and you measure from the end, and you say, okay, how much pivot do I need back here? So I'm going to cut back quite a ways. Let me measure this. Measure the end here first before I continue, right? So I got here, I'm at, if you recall, I needed 0.6 and I'm 0.7 right now. Now eventually I just get the roller table out and measure it, which I'm going to do in a few seconds. But let me take some more material off of it and see where that leaves me. So that's pretty shitty setup. I think I'll just use my 4, and I got to move this a bit closer here because it ain't going to work this far away. Do it right about there. That, with any luck, is enough distance and enough to get the arm in there. So again, what I want to do is make sure it's tapered. That's the most important part, because when you fit it on the roller table, if it ain't tapered, you're screwed. So what I typically do is cut the front end here like this, And then I may want to sharpen this graver again here. I start riding it up the arm here with the taper until it gets to close to the end, and I'm able to stake that on. So I think that probably will, I think the roller table will probably fit onto that right now. I'm actually pretty impressed at how circular that's spinning. So again, get a piece of my friendly Rodico. I got a lot of that stuff. I love it. Rodico's my friend. And I'll pick up the roller table with the Rodico like that. And let me just see if that fits on there. If and how and when and why. Oh, it's going to fall. Hey, now it's huntfortherollertable.com. Alright, I found the roller table, so I clean it off just a little bit. And then get up nice and close and see if that sticks on there. And it does. And I see how far that'll ride up, so that's just barely sticking on. Now it's huntfortherollertable.com again. Okay, I've got to cut it back just a bit here because it's got too much material. So I'll just start here and cut it back. I also sharpen the graver here. It's carbide, but every now and then you got to show your gravers that you love them. I learned something is that when you're doing the roller table, it's completely friction fit, and if you go too fast, you end up screwing it up. And if you screw it up, you end up having to use a round stake to narrow the hole of the roller table to get it on again. So it's best to just take your time, take your bloody time, as they say. So if I fit that on here like this, let's see if I can fit that on. It's the harder part, is fitting this friggin' thing on, right? Alright, so there, as you can see, it's starting to fit now. And it's about a third up. So just take a mental note of where that is. And then gotta make sure I get the right graver here and shave off a bit more, so it's about a third up, which means it's successfully fitting up to here. So I'm gonna shave off a bit here and leave that top part alone because that's where it's going to snug in. Again, this is like, hopefully you're still watching because this has got to be the most boring thing in the world to watch. This is what my wife said. She said it's that dog, the face of that dog that looks like he's mentally lost. And she said that's how I feel when you talk to me about watch repair. I said that's okay, dear. I don't expect anything more. So there we go. So that's still not going very deep in there, so I need to remove even yet more material. I'm going to keep an eye on that angle because I think it's I think there's tons more material there. Take some off here and it might be what the problem is. That. That's going to probably roll all the way up. That happened to me before where it rolled all the way up to the top and I'm like, damn! Then I got to actually just, I know you just take a round steak and then you pound it down a bit. It takes a lot of bravery, but that's how you can do it. See, that's pretty far up now. Just hold that in my hand for a second. Yeah, that's going up pretty far. I'm going to take a bit more material off there. So close. I don't want to take too much off. I'll screw it up. Try that. It's basically trial and error. So, should have made this video in like 9 parts, but see if I can make it as one giant movie. Probably not. It's like an Academy Award winning watchmaking film. It's like, this is amazing. This is I'd like to thank my grandmother, my mother, my father, who supported me through all this. I'd like to thank my brother, my wife, who've been pillars of support as I progress through this watchmaking world. I'd like to thank all the other people out there that contributed to this. Alright, I can see exactly where that friggin' line is. I wonder if I can do the double. If I can get closer with these. If I double them up. Do you think? I can get right on top of it. I'm going to burn my head on the camera though. Man, that's friggin' close. Again, the trick here is to really take your time. Don't rush it, because I rushed it once and I was pissed off. Because if you rush it, then it will fail miserably. Let me see if this one works here. Just put that back, put that on nicely. Sometimes having long fingernails is handy. Oh, there we go. So that's 2 more cuts and that's on. So that looks really good right there. So that, let me see if I can zoom in on that. There it is there. So that's almost on. The roller table is almost on. So I have to, now this is where I think, okay, do I do more or do I not do more? Actually, if you rotate it while it's on there like that, you can actually see where the line is. Now that's the question. We have a look at it. I think I do just a bit more. Not a lot. Oh, so close, man. So close. Alright, that's enough. I'm not doing it anymore. I can pound the rest on. No problem. No problemo, as they say. Let me just do one more fit here just to make sure I'm not screwed. I don't want to be depressed. See how this works. This Rodico's feeling pretty gummy right now. Oh, I think this is going to drop on me. Nope, it's all good. So, yeah, this is perfect. If I look at this up close, I can see that when I pound that in, I'll have enough material to move. Yeah, that'll stake in nicely. Alright, so that's that. Now, The last part of this is to make the end pivot, which should start, and this time you actually take the balance staff and bring it in backwards and say, okay, there's the pivot. If the end pivot were there, I'd probably start a bit out. So in this case, a bit out for me would be around here, right around here. In this case, you don't have to put the, you can just make the cone, because this part of the pivot doesn't collect oil. Part of the balance staff, I should say. You got to make sure you don't do is, if you hold your gravers too tight, when they end up grabbing underneath the part, they should just flip under the part naturally. That's not bad. Let me have a look at where my distancing is here. So if I look at that and I say, okay, my pivot's going to be that big, like that. That's way too friggin' big. So that would be about right. Which means I only need to have part of about half of that pivot that I'm looking at. So I probably need to cut it back even more, but probably don't need this part. Alright, I gotta use a smaller graver here to cut that off. Gotta use a point, or a 2mm. I also have to get closer in with my eyeballs. See if I can do that without hitting the camera. Actually feel the warmth of the camera. Just see if I can turn this a bit like that, so I don't burn my face on it. It's a bit better. Alright, that's about as far back as I want to cut the pivot with a graver, because I'll snap the end off it. And it's pretty tight right now. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Let's see, which way do I move the camera? Like that. That's a pretty small pivot right now. So that's pretty impressive. So now I need to use the stone of stones. Now, I think I only need one loop for this, but I gotta pick the right side. Is that the right side? 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 I'll go with this side to start off with. And again, using one hand, I just cut this pivot down to size. And once that's down to the right size, I have to burnish the end with a burnisher. I have to make sure it's rounded, so I'll use this part of the stone here. That should round the back a bit. And you gotta be very light with it. Don't put too much pressure on it, because it will snap right off. Eventually I need to test how big this thing is. Again, I gotta do it at like 0.11. Which is like a friggin' hair. That's got to be at least 0.11 there. Oh my God, that's small. I'll get my gauge out here. I think I'm getting pretty worn out. This is like a long day of making this balance staff. So making a balance staff is not an easy job. It's not for the faint of heart, as they say. So it fits into 0.13. So then I should get my burnisher out, because I can take the rest of it off with the burnisher, I believe. Or take it down a bit more anyway. Maybe I should. I'm going to take it a bit more down with the stone here, and then I'll use the burnisher in a second. Alright, that's pretty damn good. Let me look at that again here. See if it's not too small now. I doubt it. Point. That might be it right there. Yep, definitely. So now I can use the burnisher for a few seconds. It's still got a little bit of oil on it, I believe. And then I'll just smoothen it out here. Like this, because that smoothens out the pivot. And let's take a little bit off of this too. And that should do. Let me do the angle here on this too. Give it a nice rounded edge. And that should do right there. And I believe, ladies and germs, I am completely finito. So let me just unscrew this, and again, I don't want this thing to take a ride, so I can just very carefully put this on here, loosen it up just a bit, because I know this is going to fall, so I don't want it to fall, or I don't want it to fall, because it'll break the pivot on the end. So there we go. I very carefully grab this. And then I'm going to put it on a piece of paper just to show you what I got. There, I'll bend that a little bit. And let's see if that focuses up now. And there, my friends, is the end result. That is a very nice balance staff. See, up, left, right, forward. So there it is there. That is the replacement for the balance staff I had earlier, and it is done and it looks great. So that is how you make a balance staff. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a complete videoing of the balance staff exercise. And again, thanks a lot.